So in terms of kind of blocking, if you will, so we continue using and not forgetting our acting terminology. Um, once we get going, we're going to take a beat, and then at the very end, when I say goodbye to you and everybody else, we'll take another beat, and those are my cut points. Otherwise, again, in terms of my eye line, just because I'm wearing kind of rimmed glasses, if I'm looking at you right now, my eyes are here, so people may not see my eyes. So I'm going to be looking at the camera all the time when I'm asking the question, and then kind of I'll sneak down to you. So that's where my eyes are. Otherwise, again, if at any point this is recorded and we're going to cut out what we don't want. So if at any point I ask you a question you don't want to get into, just say, hey, we're not going to get there, and we'll take a beat, and then I'll cut that part out.
Right on.
Yeah, I've never.
Conversely, if I start just rambling on about something I probably shouldn't, you can go, hey, you don't want to go there.
No, I want you to go there. That's what my interviews are about. Think of these. Think of these in the way that James Lipton used to do it, or actors on actors. This is where kind of my style. I will ask you a few obligatory Breaking Bad questions, but I'm a lot more interested in your unicycle abilities and other things. So yeah, I'm interested to know who you are as a person, because again, this is it's the love of acting that is what I'm interested and the audience is interested in. Breaking Bad is a part of it, and that's a huge part of kind of your career. So we'll definitely touch upon it, but there are a lot more interesting things that I want to talk about. Cool. Any questions, anything before we take our beat?
Not that I can think of.
All right,
I do tend to ramble, and because everyone's always working and schooling, I really don't have a lot of people to talk to. So just know that
this is what I'm
excited about these.
This is what I'm here for. I'm serious about that. All right, let's take our beat and let's just chat. Again, think of this as a conversation as opposed to an interview. I do have my questions, but it's really a conversation. So all right, let's take our beat. Welcome back, everybody. I'm really excited to speak with another wonderful actor, somebody that a lot of you know, and certainly a lot of you have seen in many different places and have heard without necessarily realizing that you were hearing his voice, and we'll touch upon that. Somebody whose video just went out and came right back on, but that's the sign of our times. So let me introduce, if you haven't noticed already, this is a wonderful actor and a really good guy, Charles Baker. Welcome.
Hey, thank you for having me. How you doing?
And for those people who are tuning in because you were Skinny Pete in Breaking Bad, and they want you to use your key phrase, why don't we start there and get everybody happy before I tell them that I've never watched Breaking Bad and they're going to be pissed off at me. So let's start with you.
Oh, I think what they're asking for is, yo, bitch, you should watch some Breaking Bad. That's some good shit right there.
I think so. I think
that covered all of the particular little idioms.
based on my limited knowledge, and of course I've heard of Breaking Bad, and I know your character, and in my prep on you, I've seen some of the work that you've done on it. But I know how great Breaking Bad is, and that's one of the things that worries me, is because I know once I start watching, I'm gonna get stuck. And I don't have the time to get stuck, so I've been putting it off. I know eventually I'll get there.
Right. I usually tell people, hey man, who haven't seen it yet, like I envy you, because you get to enjoy this experience like for the first time. It's been like 10 years for the rest of us. So enjoy the ride, man. I can't wait to hear how much you love it when you're done.
Yeah, I'm sure I will. And again, I'm a big fan of Bryan Cranston, so I know how amazing he is. It's, again, looking at the top TV shows of all time, TV dramas. Let's be more specific, of all time. Breaking Bad is in everybody's top 3 list. So I know, and it's on mine as well. I'm getting to it. Mine is The West Wing, and this is my obligatory reference, because in every episode,
I should bring my wife on over, because we own the box set of the West Wing.
Yeah.
Yeah, the presidential library box.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
That's awesome.
she's currently, she binges, she uses it as background noise when she's working. So she just has it constantly playing on Netflix on her phone and just listens to it. And she can recite episodes. She can tell you which episode a line was in. And I, of course, watched the whole thing myself. But wow, West Wing, it is a great show. And like, that's one of my favorite things about this business, because I was a fan of that show before I really even got started in this job. And I've worked with a lot of people that have been on the West Wing. And like, that's like one of my, like, oh, I've worked with people from the West Wing. So we got a lot of common there.
Yeah, well, first of all, your wife has excellent taste. And
yes, she does. She really has excellent taste, as you can tell,
I think so.
between her choices and TV show and husbands.
Yeah. Oh, I got I got that preference. And second, again, at least as far as I know, I've only had a chance to interview one person so far that's been in the West Wing, which is is something that I'm trying desperately to change. So if anybody from the West Wing is watching, I have contacted you before. Please come on. But I talked to Thomas Capacci, who, again, I know your wife knows exactly who he played, but
yes.
Thomas is such a beautiful, beautiful being. And now when I'm rewatching, during the COVID time, I rewatched the West Wing. And yes, everybody can now tell me if I had the damn time to rewatch the West Wing, I should have watched the Breaking Bad. I know.
It's a comfort zone. I get it.
And I've had a chance to talk to Thomas. So now watching him on screen, having watched him for so many years and having talked to him and know him in person, it just adds a very interesting dynamic to the whole experience for me.
It really does, especially when it's a good experience with the person you've had. And when it's the opposite, it sometimes kind of sours you towards that show. And I'm glad I haven't had any souring experiences with personal experiences with actors.
That's great. That's great. Yes. Yeah, with Thomas, absolutely. He's one of the nicest, kindest, most genuine people that I've ever had a chance to meet. So
I could imagine.
Added to my experience.
Right on.
So who did you get a chance to work with from the West Wing?
Oh, geez, now you're gonna have me give names. Bradley Whitford. I did an episode of a show that was shooting in Texas, which it lasted one season, and right now my brain has just gone. Good Guys. My wife's like, Good Guys. She's my memory, and that's why, like, I'm glad I'm sitting like close enough to where she can hear what's going on, because she will just like Good Guys. And it was a great show. It was Colin Hanks and Bradley Whitford, and both of those guys just so that was one of them. I got to work on In Plain Sight for an episode. My brain just like names, everything has just gone away.
Well, technically you are on one of my favorite comedies, Brooklyn Nine-Nine. You were there for one episode. Both Bradley and Jimmy were in the same episode. That I found that to be very funny to watch. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah. And it's just there have been like some shows that I've been on that other actors were in the same episode, but we never actually got to meet. And I mean, it's almost a lot of the main cast. Originally Good Guys. Everything is just kind of originally Good Guys. It was supposed to be Martin Sheen was going to be playing one of the guest stars too. And I was like, wow, I get to work with Martin Sheen, but he ended up having to drop out at the last minute, and instead they got Gary Cole. And I was like, okay. I mean, like, bonus. So yeah, it's been a fun. I love getting to work with a lot of these really great actors that I respect. That's been one of the biggest learning experiences too, working with these actors that I have watched growing up.
And it's one of the things that I really admire about you, because again, as I was doing my research on you, you kept on talking about, watching Brian work and kind of learning by watching. So
Yeah.
you're the same type of, of a person that I put myself in that category of being anywhere. I don't necessarily need to ask all the questions. I just want to watch, and by watching, I'm a sponge. I'm picking things up.
Right.
That's how I get better. So I was very happy to hear you doing the same.
What's I think is great about watching, and what I learned by watching Brian especially was, um, just watching and observing. You learn things that you wouldn't think to ask. Um, if I just got all my questions answered, I'd still be lost. But seeing him work, him and Aaron Paul both, and I mean every other actor on that show, watching behind the scenes and just watching them, their process, and watching how they interact with directors and each other between the scenes, was a huge learning experience for me, because I was still kind of shell shocked by the time I got onto it. I still am. Every time I'm on a series, on a show, I'm just like, I can't believe I'm here. I'm Sam Rockwell from Galaxy Quest. Like, I'm just stoked to be here, man. Like, I have no idea what's going on. I don't know why I'm here, but I'm just glad to be here. So it's fun. It's amazing. It's been a tremendous experience.
Yeah, absolutely. By the way, you mentioned Gary Cole. Gary Cole and I, share the hair. His hair and my hair are some related in some sort. And every time I look at him, especially lately what he's been doing deep, and I look at his hair, I'm like, yeah, when I'm growing my hair out, that's pretty much what it looks like, just a different color.
Yeah, that's cool.
Anyway,
cool.
Sorry, that's neither here
nor
there. Yeah, another West Wing reference, and he had
right.
very little hair in West Wing. So I didn't get a chance to see that. I remember again, kind of you referencing that when you're doing a TV series and you get a chance to really be a part of it, or 15 episodes on Breaking Bad, and you get to be a part of that, you understand how the writers change the storylines and the backstory all the time. So all of the things that we're taught as actors of, you read what's on the page and
right.
then you add a lot of your own backstory kind of to it. That backstory may not work at all, and you constantly have to adjust. So
right.
what you finally did, which I loved, was just let it go and be in that moment and find freedom in that. I think that's a great lesson for all of us.
Yeah, it was a great lesson for me too, because and thankfully we aren't, as actors, we aren't expected to vocalize our backstories that we've come up with in our head and like tell anybody what, because I would look like such a fool, because for the first 5 episodes I was like, oh no, oh nope, he doesn't do that. Okay. Yeah, he loves to be like, oh no, he doesn't like that at all. Okay. And it was interesting to find out more about my character the more I got to play. And it was where I really learned how to just go with it. And my job is to play the material as real as I can right now, and so I'll do that. And but a lot of that is directors, really good directors, knowing hey, you don't need to read between the lines in this scene. Just say the words and be your character. And that's that was very helpful a lot of times. I'm so used to like having to find the motivation and find the all the different aspects that you're supposed to study as an actor, to look at, and you just kind of like blow that away for a little while and just, hey, do what they said. And that's kind of how Skinny Pete, when he got created, was the first episode. I was only supposed to be a day player for 1 episode and then be gone. And I came in there with my idea of what the skinny stoner should be. And the director went, don't play it so stoned, just say the lines. And we kind of just figured out how this character came across in the first episode, and I'd never really thought I'd come back, so I didn't put a lot of thought. I didn't have a lot of time between auditioning for the role and getting the role and flying out there for it. You don't have you're doing a community theater play where you have a month to figure out your character. I had a gist. He was a skinny stoner. Like, that's easy. I've known a bunch of those guys. I went to high school, so I just played Skinny Stoner and then toned down the stoned part a little bit, and bam, we got Skinny Pete. And then they brought me back. That was when I was like, ooh, I should have done some homework. And so I started like trying to come up with all this great backstory and this great, and just based on the one scene I had. And it didn't really jive with what kept coming on the pages. And I was like, okay, well, I'll just change it to this. And I was like, you know what? It doesn't matter. A good director and good writers are gonna carry this. I'm just kind of a vessel. And so that's what I tried to be. I did a lot of theater, Shakespeare and Beckett, and stuff that was like required to be verbatim. And so I learned I didn't change the dialogue to fit me. I made the dialogue work. And if I didn't understand it, then I just needed to find a way to understand it. And it was really difficult for me because I'm not Skinny Pete. I thought when I auditioned for Skinny Pete, I thought I was going to like go in kind of against type. I mean, I knew they were looking for what I was, but I played more comedic, kind of goofy kind of roles in theater. I did musical theater, and I wasn't really like the thug, druggy type. So I went in thinking, I'm going to show them my diversity, and they went, hey, here's that little hole we're going to peg you into. I went, oh man, that's not what I was going for. But like the language that Skinny Pete uses was so foreign to me. The first time I'd read a scene, I'd be like, what is he saying? And it occurred to me that the only challenge I had, the biggest challenge I had, was to make everything Skinny Pete said sound like he says it all the time. It couldn't be these phrases that just tripped off the tip of his tongue could not just be the first time I'd have ever said it, just because I memorized the line. It had to be something that flowed. And so like on the really tricky lines that Skinny Pete had, and the very first one that I can use an example is, yo man, well, the first time I read it like this. Yo man, I'm slinging mad volume and fat stacking Benjis. You know what I'm saying? I can't be all about spelling and shit. What did I just say? And so once I kind of broke down what I was saying, man, I'm slinging mad volume. Oh, okay. I'm like putting out a lot of selling a lot of drugs and fat stacking Benjis. Benjamin Franklin, he's on the $100 bill. I'm catching up. I know that reference. And I just kind of built on it like that until I knew what I was saying. Because so many actors will like throw a phrase out and have no idea what exactly it is they're trying to convey or supposed to convey in this scene. And so like once I figured out what he was saying, then all I really had to get used to was saying it that way. And that was just a matter for me of just constant repetition. It was a musical kind of thing because that's my background is in music, and I've realized over the time that music kind of guides everything I do in that way. And I learned how to act the same way I learned music, by watching and listening. So it was the musicality of the phrases that I would get into. And so that sentence became, yo man, I'm slinging mad volume and fat stacking Benjis. You know what I'm saying? I can't be all about like spelling and shit, which is like the only way I could do that still is because I said it at least 2,000 times the night before that episode filmed, and at least 200-300 times the morning before we filmed it, because that was like, ooh, that's a complicated little piece of music right there. And so I wanted to be able for it to flow instead of stumbling through it as if I wasn't used to saying those kind of words. And so that became the biggest challenge for me.
I love that. And again, I know that you come from a musical background. You were a vocal major, and when we hear people in opera a lot, right? So it's not that they speak Italian, but they know because they understand and they hear the proper tonality of it, and they get to a point where it sounds the right way. So I love that you're using your previous experiences and how you already wired in order to translate that and apply it to acting. It's great.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks. My first instrument was violin, and I learned that Suzuki style, which as a 4-year-old kid, I was in a room with a violin. I taught how to hold the bow and how to hold the violin, and then we walked around in circle and just played the same song for an hour. And you just watched how other people did it, and you played along until you were matching it note for note, and you learn how to play by ear before you learn how to read. And I took that and I learned, that's how I taught myself how to play piano. I taught myself how to play guitar, taught myself how to play other instruments. In schools, I played drums, and then I played trumpet. Well, actually reverse. I played trumpet in like 3rd grade, and then drums from 4th to 9th grade. And then I got into just choirs and I sang in the jazz choirs and a cappella choirs, and just all kinds of different like musical groups. In fact, when I was a freshman in high school, I was in a barbershop quartet. And really that was always my goal, was to be a musician, to be really a singer. But you have to get into a lot of like, my dad was military. Being a performer was never really going to be an option. So it started really as, okay, I'll be a music teacher. That's like, obviously I'm not good enough to be any kind of like professional, any kind of entertainer. So I'll teach people how to do it. I've been told my whole life, you're never going to be, you're not good looking enough to be an actor. You're too short to be an actor. Only a few people actually make a living at it. You'll never be able to support a family. You'll never be able to buy a house or a car. So just do something, reasonable. And so I was like, yeah, okay, I'll do something reasonable and teach other people how to do unreasonable stuff, I guess. And just things kind of stumbled into. I can't say I didn't have a plan or a trajectory, but it changed. It kind of flowed. I went with the flow and saw the signs and went, maybe I should try this, and maybe I should try this. And then next thing you know, I'm like, what the hell? Why am I on TV?
First of all, to everybody who said that to you, I certainly had that same thing being said to me. So I know how that feels, and I'm not gonna respond to those people. I guess we'll respond with thanks. And
yeah. Well, there are times when I think, well, maybe I became successful out of spite. Like, maybe this was my way of pissing my dad off, but but it doesn't matter, because I really love what I do. And I don't. What is the saying? Those people who say it can't be done need to get out of the way from those of us who are doing it. And that's kind of where I was, and like, I didn't get a lot of, oh, well, we're wrong. I didn't get a lot of that. It was weird, but it was, it is what it is. And yeah, don't do it out of spite. I'll say that, because you don't get any gratification out of it. But it's a fun job when you can get it.
Right. And that's the thing. And now kind of looking back at, how you grew up and how much you've traveled and the things that you were into. And I'm going to ask the question, which, as you were describing all the instruments that you were playing and all the things you were doing in throughout your schooling, we're also, not talking about ballet. We're not talking about gymnastics. And I'm trying
Right.
to figure out how you fit all of that in with all of your travel and living in all of the different places that you've lived in. But we'll get to that in
It's,
a second.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
Looking at kind of how you got to this point and seeing, okay, so a person was doing a ton of music, a person was in vocals, then the person got into voiceover. So those vocals continued actually helping him later on in his life in voiceover work. You have the musical approach, which helped you with acting, because the ability to properly learn and express the lines and the emotion behind them. The person who traveled so much and had to kind of fit in and understand, who they are as a person without getting everybody else's acceptance of them, found themselves in the secondary market and figured out how to get out of that secondary market, or how to get the most out of that secondary market and still do things. The person who's told that they were not good looking enough, which I how dare do people ever say that to anybody?
It's
It's
a
ridiculous.
weird one, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you found an ability to use that to help with typing. If somebody is typing you as something which you absolutely are not, well, then you're good enough to fool the director into thinking that you're a drug addict.
Right.
Uh,
Right.
but all of these things, all of your experiences became incredibly useful and allowed you to have this fulfilling career.
Yeah.
And I love that. And I think that's
Thank
what
you.
people need to realize, that all of the shit that you're going through and all of the things that you're doing that you don't know how they're going to get
Yeah.
put together, they will. Just give it enough
Yeah.
time and continue working on
Yeah. Um, exactly. The reason I had the time to bounce back and forth was because of the transitory nature of my life. Um, my dad was very strict military. He was, by the end, he was on the Joint Chiefs of Staff. My mom was mentally ill, severely mentally ill.
it.
And I was the youngest child. And so when they divorced, I was the only one that had to be in their custody. And my brothers and sisters went off and were safe. I was the one that they used. And so with dad, no, arts was not a thing. I was sports. Everything had to be sports. And so I had to be good at football and baseball and soccer and all of that. With mom, everything was she was an artist. She taught English and math, but she was a painter. So she would push me to do I think the stuff that really angered my dad. And so, and I mean, it gets even weirder. I mean, just, yeah, the way they were kind of fighting each other through me by, he would take music away when I had to go live with him. She would, I wouldn't do anything physical when I went to live with her. So I had to become both of them. I had to be an artist and the jock. And I found ways to kind of edge my way into both. And it's like, okay, I'll be on the baseball team, but let me also be in this musical, or let me also and it wasn't until I was in high school, I was on the junior varsity football team, I got stung by a bee on my hand, and I just went ow, and then blacked out. And I got back up, my hand was swollen like a softball, like it was just huge. And they took me to the school nurse, and she said, you're deathly allergic to bees. If you ever get stung, you could die. You can't play any outdoor sports. And I ran to my dad with that, like, hey, guess what?
Yeah.
And so then I got to be in just the music programs and the choir, and that's when I started.
EpiPen everywhere, right?
Yeah, at first. Turns out I got stung again, and years later, and after living in this like terror of bees, I got stung again later, and I was like, well, I'm dying now, and nothing happened. I went, really was that? Because my mom, being my mom, she didn't like, she taught me to completely distrust the medical industry. And for some good reasons, I'm sure, but like to a point where medical treatment was not a thing. Like even the broken bones were just wrapped up with ace bandages until I got sent to my dad, who would then send me to a hospital and they'd re-break the bone, things like that. So it was kind of experience is definitely good for an actor, I guess, is where I should stop with this.
Shit, you've been through stuff.
A little bit.
Wow.
But I've got this awesome family right here. I mean, my wife and kids, not the other ones by any means, but my wife and kids. My wife's parents have been more parents to me since I met her than I've ever seen. And I just now bought my first house. I'm almost 50, but we just, in California, we ended up saving up enough money to get a down payment on a small, kind of modest little fixer-upper out in the valley that I've had plenty of time to be fixing up. And so that's all I've been doing. We had to have a new roof installed. That's how fixer-upper it was. And so while we had the roof installed, we also had solar panels put on it. So like we're trying to modernize it, and but like I got a lot of great stuff out of the stuff that when I was a kid, even up until I was 20, I never imagined. I mean, okay, I was 33 before I even started on TV, and I had no idea that I was ever going to go anywhere with that. And like that was a pipe dream up until the moment it happened, and it's still kind of like, is this happening? And yeah, there are times that I like still have to go, man, I hope this isn't like that death fever dream that I'm having, right? Like I'm lying in a gutter somewhere, like dying, and all of this whole thing has just been an illusion. Because sometimes it seems like, how did I get here? But like I did with my career, I just rolled with it. And I just like, just do what I can.
Again, I understand to a certain extent, but like now when I'm getting calls from Thomas Capacci that we talked about, right? I watched him on my favorite show ever, and then I get a chance to talk to him. It turns out that I am the only interview he's ever done in his entire career, which blew my mind.
Wow.
The first interview that he's ever had in his ridiculously wonderful career. I'm incredibly humbled by that. And now we get a chance to talk to him, and he's a really good friend. And
that's cool.
There is a part of my brain that goes, what the fuck is happening right now? Because 3 months ago, I was me, the same me. I'm still living in the same house. Everything is the same. But now I'm talking to the people who I grew up watching. It's just a surreal feeling.
Right. Oh, it gets worse. I mean, like that's my wife and I still are like, really? Like, how is it? It took a lot of my friends and family a while to really accept the fact that people knew who I was outside of just my circle of friends. Like, what do you mean somebody asked you for your autograph? I was like, I know, it's weird, isn't it? It's like, oh, they must have made a mistake. Like, no, they actually knew who I was from the show. It's like weird. And a lot of times people wouldn't approach me if I'm with my wife and kids, but like they walk away and then they'll come up and go, hey, come here. I'm like, hey, look over. I'm like, oh, darn. So it took a while before anybody even actually, like my family even actually realized that, like, and I'm still like catching up to the fact that people know who I am based on a character I play. Because it's for a long time nobody even like really could figure out that. But I played Skinny Pete. I was living in Texas, and nobody is looking for actors, working actors on TV in Fort Worth, Texas, to be walking around the street.
Yep.
And I don't walk around dressed in a beanie and a wife beater or whatever t-shirt. And so like nobody went, hey, look at Skinny Pete. So for most of the series, I went completely unnoticed. But when I was in New Mexico shooting this show, once or twice I'd go out with Aaron Paul and Matt Jones, Badger, and Jesse, and we would just go out to a restaurant or something, and they would get swarmed with people. It's like, that's weird. And people would literally push me out of the way because I'd show up wearing my glasses and my haircut, and, just looking like a person and not like Skinny Pete. But those two are very recognizable in or out of costume. And so people would just kind of push me out of the way, and then they go, hey, that's Skinny Pete. And they'd look at me and like, really? And then like all rush me. And then they would sneak off and go order their food and have a drink and just kind of chuckle to themselves while I was like, what the heck? And it was an interesting kind of change because like you said, I still pay rent and struggle with like bills and still like have to yell at my kids when they're like fighting and still have to wash dishes. What do you mean I'm who I am? That's crazy. But it is what it is. It's interesting.
Do you remember the first time that somebody asked you for an autograph? Do you remember that experience?
It started happening so fast that, and once it's happened, it just became kind of like this flurry of things. And I have a feeling it was probably more of somebody like I already knew who had just happened to start watching the show before any of the rest of my friends caught on to it. And more of a kind of a, hey, yeah, sign this for me in case you ever become. I think that was the first one, and then it just became kind of this flurry, and I started to like, ooh, that's crazy. I need to learn how to spell my name right. You have to learn how to get sign an autograph, and I'm really bad at it. So,
what was that phrase? Skinny Pete. If Skinny Pete, it's not about the spelling, right?
Right. Can't be all about like spelling and shit. So it's an interesting.
When things like that started happening, and when fame or whatever we want to call it, started happening, did you have any? Obviously there's the part of being grateful and weirded out by it, but was there any kind of defense mechanism that there's like, okay, I don't know where that line is of what's okay, what's not okay. Do I need to, now change my phone number? Do I need to kind of put gates around my house? What do I need to do here
now? Yeah. You always wonder, like, at which point does that happen? And luckily it hasn't gotten to that point for me. When I moved to Texas, from Texas, I did change my phone number only so I could have a California area code. But I haven't had an issue with like where I felt unsafe from fans or from people who like the show. And even when I've been in at events where to meet fans, I do have a problem like knowing where to draw the line. It's like, hey, will you let me give you a hug? Hey, will you like, can I jump on your back and like wave to my friends? Like, okay, I think we're crossing the line here. But it's hard to really, as an actor, you're taught yes, and yes, and when I was learning music, I was in high school. When short story, I was asked to play keyboards for a heavy metal band. And I just went, yeah, I'm not really interested. I don't think classical piano would work good in a heavy metal situation. For me, it just didn't seem like an idea. And my music teacher heard me, and he came up to me and said, what are you doing? He said, anytime you get an opportunity to work, you take it, because you never know like where that experience is going to take you. I'm like, damn, I should have thought of that. And so that became my thing. It's like, someone offers you an opportunity in this business, as long as you're not principles, and compromising whatever it is
Yep.
whatever line you've don't want to cross. Go for it. Try it out. See where it'll take you.
Mhm.
But at some point, you got to go. Wait, maybe I shouldn't just say yes to everything now. And now you have to like start learning how to say no and when to say no, because it's now people are have a different take on things, and it's are trying to get trying to use the work you've done as for them without really any like reciprocal kind of like benefit. And I'm not saying everything has to benefit me, but it's a business.
Right.
I mean, it is a business, and it's called show business. And once you really, someone said, once you start wanting to get paid, you stop being an artist and you become a business person. And so, you have to. I hate the business part, by the way. I really hate the business part. I just want to be on set. I don't want to hear about the negotiations and how much how much they don't want to pay or do want to pay. I just want to like go do my job, meet these cool dudes. But there's a system. There's a way things are done. There's all these different compromises you have to make, and you have to decide what is the juice worth the squeeze sometimes. And you go with it, and it's like learning to say no after a decade of saying yes to everything, to every opportunity, is one of the hardest things to do. So it gets weird.
So any advice to people, and I'm not at that point, but any advice to people who are approaching that point of when you know that you need to stop kind of saying yes, and how to make that choice and transition?
I think it all depends really on where you're trying to go and what your goal is. My goal is still, hasn't happened yet, to be a series regular on a TV series, only because that's the only steady income you have in this business, as far as I'm aware. That's in my position. I've spent the last 12, 13, 14 years having to literally book 2 or 3 jobs, TV shows or films a month to support my family. And for a long time, my manager was like, I don't know how you're doing this. And I was like, what do you mean? I have to be doing this. If I don't do this, we don't like eat or pay rent. So it's not about it's about having a strategy, and knowing and learning. You mentioned James Lipton in an earlier conversation before all this started, and that like he was my watch and observe guy. I mean, that's where I would learn all these great lessons, was from listening to these actors tell their stories. And where was I going with that? And so I knew I had to learn this business and learn the protocols and learn the right way to go about things, and little things like, hey, if I started working on Walker, Texas Ranger as an extra, as a background actor. And I did a lot of that, and someone said, hey man, you start doing too much background work, they're going to just say, hey, you're a background actor. You don't necessarily, unless that's what you want to do, you might want to step away from doing that and try and go for the next another level. And that's what I really think it is like figuring out where do you want to go? Do you want to be a day player? Do you want to be and then work towards that goal in whichever way you think is appropriate. But build. It should always be a growing thing. And going backwards is usually considered not a good thing. But you also have to take into account the zeitgeist. And so then it becomes like a really tricky balancing act, and it's really all like a chess game. more than anything. It's, you have to have a strategy, and then you have to be flexible and go with the flow, but still keep your eye on the goals and try and survive in between.
That's true. That's really what it is. It's survival.
Yeah.
A lot of acting. People think it's all glamour, but it's a lot of hard work. It's a lot of, and it's not just hearing people say no, because most of the time we hear nothing. You audition and then you hear nothing. So it's that part.
Yeah.
It's a tough gig, and only those people who actually are really passionate about it and don't want to do anything else are kind of the
Right.
people who make it.
Yeah, I usually tell young actors, if you can think of another career that you would want to do, go do that.
Yeah.
You can always go do theater, community theater, and you can be an actor.
Yeah.
Any town, anywhere, you can find a community theater that needs volunteers, and you can work in theater. And that's where I started doing that too.
Yeah.
And that's where you learn, and that's where you get the opportunity to meet people who are volunteering, but also volunteering because they're professionals and they're helping out. And then those people are saying, hey, this guy's a go-getter. I might want to bring him on to my project that actually pays people, because I have a lot of people I'm paying who aren't going as hard as this guy. It's a business. I've known a lot of people who have a part-time job or a full-time job, and then they have an agent, and they're basically working their full-time job and just waiting for their agent to give them work. And I have to explain to them, like, the amount of energy and effort you put into surviving and to paying your bills an equal amount has to be put into your career. And so if you work a 40-hour day at your job, you need to work a 40-hour day as an actor, doing actor stuff. And it's a full-time gig, not just being an actor, but networking, learning, studying. I spent 6 years just learning mime skills because Keira Knightley in an interview talked about how her mime skills helped her get into Pirates of the Caribbean, and how you should pay attention in mime class. They don't have mime classes in America because they gave up mime study. It's movement, and it's learning how to deal with CGI backgrounds and animated cartoons. The reason Bob Hoskins has played Who Framed Roger Rabbit was because of his mime skills. Anthony Daniels got C-3PO because of his mime skills. You can't communicate emotion the way Anthony Daniels communicated emotion wearing a full robot suit unless you have training. And so many people take that part for granted. And so, like, learn what you need to know how to make it in this business. And that's one of the reasons why everyone talks about British actors are all taking over all the great American roles. It's because British actors actually are trained. Americans just come into this stuff thinking, oh, my mom said I was pretty, I know how to read, I'm an actor. And like, come on, man. So sorry. My first introduction to acting was Uta Hagen's Respect for Acting. And if you're not going to read the whole book, if you're not going to study anything, at least read the introductory chapter of that, because it tells you exactly what I'm saying. Like, just because you have a skill or a talent, you don't deserve this. You have to work for it, and you have to even know what you have to work for it. And you can't do that unless you study and learn. And so, but that's how I met my wife, was working in a theater that was a Commedia dell'arte, and kind of really kind of off the wall, obscure theater. And the artistic director and writer for that theater was a world-renowned mime. And so that was incorporated into a lot of his performances, and I studied from him. And he studied from Marcel Marceau and Jacques Lecoq, who are two of the greatest mimes in the world. And that's what I put that's I think what helps me get the work that I get, because I can not only say the words, but I can actually show it to you physically and be the character in full body and not just in mind and spirit. But pay attention in mime class. Keira Knightley's words, not mine. She seems to be doing okay for herself.
I think so. Yeah. Although the thing that actually pissed me off is, I ended up doing a student. Again, I didn't grow up here. I grew up in part of the world that you spend some time in during your youth. I grew up in Ukraine, and I came here at 14. So I didn't grow up to be Jane Austen fan because I didn't know who Jane Austen was. And I heard something about Pride and Prejudice a little while back. It wasn't until I did, kind of a student film production of Pride and Prejudice, where I had a small role. I was kind of one of the valets and a houseman, if you will. And then just for my own background, I started to kind of watching and reading Pride and Prejudice. And then I went on a whole binge of Pride and Prejudice and all of Jane Austen's, novels and movies and film. And now the Pride and Prejudice, the musical came out, I watched that, of course. But what ticked me off is that I watched Keira Knightley in Pride and Prejudice, and I loved it. I thought it was a wonderful performance. And then I put that up on Facebook, and some people was like, yeah, whatever. It's just all she's doing is just smiling. Like, you know what? Screw you. There's a lot.
Try being in a movie sometime. Try it. Like anybody who can work in this business has my respect, and they may not personally have my respects, like because of some of their other out. But if they can convince me that they are the character they're playing in any movie that they're any project they're in, I'm in. Because it takes more than just talent. It takes more than just skill. It takes professionalism. And Michael Caine, one of my favorite quotes from Michael Caine was, "I'm a skilled and professional actor. Whether or not I have any talent has nothing to do with it." And it's really, I mean, there's so much more than just being able to do the work. Doing the work is the prize you get at the end. that's the bonus, is getting actually to act. But like all the other stuff that you have to, the rejection, the education. I hope if you're going to be an actor, please get an education, because you're just going to make people like Bryan Cranston angry if you show up going, "I don't know nothing about acting." Like, ooh, then why are you here? He study, learn as much as you can. It doesn't have to be from a special school or from the greatest schools. I got some of my best education from a community college, because a lot of the teachers that were teaching me acting were also working actors. And so learn from those people, learn from people who know what they're talking about. And yeah, it's like, more than anything, have some respect for what you do or what you want to do. Like, have enough respect to learn the history and learn the different styles, and understand where it is all of this comes from. And if you can do that, you're probably going to make it a lot farther than anybody.
That's one of the reasons why initially I've heard from the people who, as I put together the show and as I started interviewing people, these interviews are long, and that's how it's supposed to be.
Right.
And when people are saying, well, they're too long, I don't have an hour to watch it, really, then you're not really investing in acting. I mean, how do you expect to be an actor, or how do you expect to be professional at your craft if you don't have enough curiosity to spend an hour listening to the people who you're watching on the screen and learning from them? I don't get that. Like, I want this to be 5-hour-long interviews because I have questions to ask. And thankfully, Austin Bases, who I love, who's a really, really good dude. He is a lifetime member of the Actor Studio. And he studied under James, and he was in the audience when James was interviewing Robin Williams. And that was a 5-hour interview that they had to cut down to 2 hours.
Right.
That's, I understand that. I don't
Yeah.
understand how people can do interviews with actors and actually get to the stuff that I want to talk about in a 10-minute interval.
Yeah.
That's not,
It's
that's
instant gratification.
right.
A lot of it is, that's what we're taught here is instant gratification. You need to have, there's a pill you can take that'll make you famous, right? One actor I had mentioned to one very highly respected actor that I'm not going to throw his name out right now, but I mentioned to this actor that people keep coming up to me asking me how they can get an agent or meet my agent, or how they can do what I do. And he said, you know what they're really asking, right? They're asking, how do I become famous?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, well, I can't tell them that. I don't even know how I don't know how it happens. So yeah, it's a lot of people just really, they want to be told what they want to hear. And if what they want to hear isn't, you have to work hard, you have to study, you have to train, it's going to take time. It took me 10 years just to get to where I felt like I could even try to be an actor. You're going to be like, oh no, I meant like this afternoon. How do I do it this afternoon? Like, then yeah, go do something else. And
I learned that the hard way. I learned that particular lesson the hard way, and that has nothing to do with acting fame. But in 2012 or 2011, I happened to create for myself a kind of a wellness program because I was stressed out and I was not in good shape. So I happened to a few things made sense to me, and I took some time and I created a wellness program just for myself. And then it worked really well, and I wanted to share it with people, so I put it together into kind of a method. It's called the seamless method, where every letter is, it's the 8 things that we're supposed to be doing on a daily basis. So I created it and I put it together, and I thought, okay, well, maybe this is something that I can use. I can write a book, I can talk about it, I can have programs, and I created a program. And then I realized very painfully that if you're telling people something that works, I had 92% success rate in stress reduction, 87% success rate in getting people into better shape, like scientifically proven, because we were doing, every week we were monitoring it. But you were telling people that, hey, it's going to take you 40 days to achieve something, and you have to do this, and all of the things that I'm telling you to do, you've heard before. People don't care. They don't want to hear that. They want to hear, this is the herb that I found in the jungles of this, and when you take this herb, you can sleep, and all the weight is going to be off you in 20 minutes. Like, really? Are we that pathetic? I'm sorry.
Sometimes. And we can all be lazy about some things, but it's like, how bad do you want it? If it's truly what you want, you have no choice. If you really believe you have no choice but to do this, and you really believe you want to do it, learn. And you aren't always going to get lessons you want to hear. And sometimes you will get stuff that people will try and teach you wrong things, which is why you learn from different people. Watch and listen and grow, just let it come. For me, it wasn't about trying to become famous. It was about just trying to support myself and my family as much as I could as an actor, and trying to make a living of this, and just get the work that I can, see what happens. And Breaking Bad really pushed things forward for me in a way that it doesn't usually happen for people, and I am really grateful for that opportunity. But I will say that luck is when opportunity meets preparation. I was prepared. I was prepared. I was ready for it, and I went balls to the wall. I and um, and I showed them what I was able to do, and uh, they they made it very clear that if I wanted to continue, I needed to stay up to par with the people that I was working with. And that absolutely makes sense. Of course, they want everybody to be as on top of their game. And luckily, one of my mentors, the theater, my mime mentor, one of his favorite sayings was, "The audition is never over." And if so, I lived like that. And I still live like that. The audition is never over. No matter what you're doing, you should be trying to improve, trying to show people what you can do, what you bring to the table. And as long as you're doing that, you're probably at least loving life a little bit. And if you're loving life, then money and fame and all that may come. It may not, but at least you're loving your life while you're doing it. So but it does take work. Sometimes yeah, a lot of people just, it's that instant gratification just needs you. And that's the thing, if you work in this business, you'll find instant gratification is like non-existent. You do a job, you do a movie, you may not find out for 3 years whether or not even that movie is going to be released. You may not, and if it is released, if you're even going to be in it still. That's a Terrence Malick movie. You work on a Terrence Malick film, and you don't know if you're going to be in it when it finishes. There is no instant gratification in this. You should, and even worse, when you have a non-disclosure where you can't tell anybody about a project.
I know.
Until the project is been announced, and that was, sometimes a year, and like the biggest thing you'd ever been involved in, and you can't say a word, and there are rumors that people are now asking that you signed a contract says you can't even confirm or deny those rumors. You try and keep your mother-in-law in the dark about some kind of big deal that she's really curious about. That's not fun. So it has.
I know that you have to keep a secret for a year about El Camino.
Right.
I feel I don't know if I could do it. I learned early on in my life that I'm terrible at keeping secrets. So then, as I became older and hopefully wiser, I learned that if it's not my secret, I can keep it, because then I can compartmentalize and I can say, anything about me, I'm open, man, whatever. But that's not my story to tell. It's not my secret to tell, so I can keep it. So I think I would have been able to kind of use that mental trickery of these are not the droids you're looking for.
That was, I felt like at least I was trying to be a Jedi. That whole thing was just like, oh, you didn't ask that question. You didn't ask that. This is not the question you want to ask me. Oh man, that was like the hardest thing. And especially, like I said, you have to be your own PR when you start out in this, and just having to say yes to everything. You also have to tell them, shout out, hey, everybody, watch me, look at me. And now they're going, shut up, don't say that. But that's I don't. That was a tough one. It becomes a mental game, because the one thing you want as an actor is for people to know that you are in things, so give up on the instant gratification. That's the whole point of that. Give up on any idea of instant gratification. You are not going to get it if you are in this business. So start now by watching an hour of a show that teaches you about acting, because you aren't going to get any better education as an actor than from the people who are doing it, and the people who actually know what it is like to be on a set. And I know that because I had never heard when I first sat on a set, I was like, what is going on? ooh, this is a whole different world. Um, so like learn from the people who are doing it. Listen, because man, I there's some things that I wish were brought up inside the actor's studio.
Yeah.
Like, hey, when they put you on an airplane and fly you to a different state to shoot a major production, like, then what? Does someone come pick you up and take you to your hotel? And like, how do you know when you're supposed to show up for stuff? Because like literally what they do is they fly you out and you get to your hotel, and then like later that night someone will call you and say, okay, we're gonna come pick you up at 9 in the morning. And like that's like sometimes that's all the and so like my first time getting flown out of town for a job, I was like calling my agent, like, I'm at the airport now, what do I do? It's like
Yeah.
they'll have a car. I'm like, okay, now I'm at my hotel, like now what do I do?
Yeah.
And when do I go on set? Like they'll call you and let you know. It's almost 10 p.m. They haven't heard from them, and then they aren't calling you right now. Like, oh god. Learning some of that stuff like would have been nice.
And
Or
you still
hearing
don't
some
have
of
your,
that
and you
story.
still don't have your lines, and you don't have, usually it's a second AP. I think that
Yeah.
but like
Yeah.
you don't have any phone numbers. You don't know.
Yeah. You get like a cryptic, like, hey, we've revised the script, coming to you in a few. It's like 3 a.m. and I've got to work at 9. What do you mean? Like coming to you in when am I supposed to sleep? There's a whole lot of variables involved, but instant gratification has never been one of them.
Um, Michael Caine, you mentioned Michael. I love Michael Caine.
No, absolutely.
Now that you're kind of a part of the Love of Acting family, and now that you're following me on Instagram and Twitter, you'll see a lot of Michael Caine quotes, including the one that you just mentioned. But
Right on.
Caine's one of the first books that I read was Michael Caine Being on Set, and it's right there. I'm looking at it right now. So, and by the way, I
Right
have
on.
Uta's book right there as well. And the how to be on set, I learned from Michael Caine, because
Wow.
the classes that I was taking didn't have anything to do with how to be on set. And even though I read Michael Caine's book, the first time I got on set and I heard speeding, I started looking to see if there's a car that's about to be hitting me. I don't know. Nobody teaches you
Yeah.
these things,
And
and
you don't get any of that.
I couldn't understand it. I literally went to the acting place that I was taking courses in, and I said, we need to have a course on what it's like to be on set.
Right.
How do we
Right.
how do you expect people to learn the craft of acting and then get on set, and then you're going to forget what you're doing because you have so many things that are whizzing by you, and then
Right.
you were there and then you're waiting for 3 hours, and then you have to worry about where's your mark, where's the camera placement, where's the other person, or are they doing my cover, are they doing the okay, whose coverage is it? You think you're going to remember your moment before and the moment after? This takes a lot of prep.
Yeah.
So, like, there
Yeah.
needs to be a class for that. And if
Right.
people don't start doing it, I'm going to start having this class. Not that
Yeah.
I know what I'm doing, but I'm going to invite people who actually know what they're doing.
I do. Yeah. Yeah. That would be very beneficial. And like I said, I started doing background work in this business. And the
Right.
reason I started doing that was so that when I did get on set, on camera, having dialogue, I wouldn't be so like, what's going on? What do you mean? And so I worked background, and I would sit in the background and just like watch how everybody like did everything, just like as quietly as I can, just okay, in between, what are they doing? Where are they going? Okay. So that I would at least not be like, oh my God, everything's so shiny and all of that. Um, and that was a great way to learn. But yeah, it would benefit a lot of people to have some lessons on, hey, this is what you do on set. Um, because it is terrifying. You have your dialogue memorized. They come in and they'll give you some blocking at the last minute. And remember, you have to walk over here and only always turn to the left when you turn around. Oh, now I have to. No, you turned to the right that last time. Did I really? I thought I turned to the left. No, you did the wrong way. So we're just gonna do it again. And okay, we're gonna do one more take, but this time, before you turn around, I want you to write a name down on a piece of paper. I now forgot everything else that I was supposed to do. Like, what? It's amazing. Like, everything is so intense on set. If you don't have your stuff together, you're going to have a real hard time. And I've seen first time actors, like really first, like never had any kind of, just like somebody they grabbed off the street, said, hey, just, you know, just say these lines, just like deer in headlights.
Yeah.
It's it's that crazy. And it gets worse. I mean, you know, try doing a love scene like that. Ooh. Like, okay, everybody, they're gonna get naked now. Okay, see everybody, they're naked now. All right, don't look directly at their junk. Like, don't tell them that. They're gonna look now. It's weird. I mean, there's a lot of other stuff going on. There's so much stuff going on. If you aren't prepared for that situation, you're going to be lost and you're going to feel like you've failed. And so because they don't want to have to teach you on the job. They don't want to have to go, okay, when I say go to your mark, what I mean is walk over and put your toe on that little square that we marked on your foot when we told you to stand there in the first place. Like, they don't want to have to tell you that kind of stuff. You learn as you go. And then once you learn all of that, once you learn all of the stuff you need, like the little stuff, then you start working with actors who are like the big guys, and they'll give you the other tricks. They're the ones who tell you, okay, now you learned how to find your mark and find your light, and now learn how to do this, and they'll give you some little tiny tidbit that I'm not going to give anybody on this, because those are my tricks now. Oh, what happened? There we go.
It was very appropriate in terms of you going dark as you're not about to share.
We're done. But yeah, you can learn once you get the little stuff. Once you can find your mark and find your light and know your camera and know where your eye line is supposed to be and all of that, and then you start gaining some respect from these big guys who'll go, hey, now if you really want to blow their mind, next time you do this scene, just look up this way instead of looking up that way. Just trust me on that. Okay. Then I've had directors literally after a actor has given me a little tip, I've had directors run up to me and go, what did he just tell you to do? Like, that was so much, but what did he just say? And it was like, he just, told me to look in a different direction. Like, that was it. But I know why he told me to do it now. And I know how to find that again, but it was just learning those little tricks like that. You build and you grow if you're willing to.
Yeah, and those are the things that are so important. And the ability to kind of, again, they talk about it, you've mentioned football, they talk about it in football all the time. When the quarterbacks are coming in from college, the first year, it's just trying to slow everything down because everything is happening way too quickly. Forget about defenses. It's just nuts. And then by year 2, maybe by year 3, things start slowing down. I remember the name of the movie escapes me, but Mark Wahlberg was in it. He was playing a guy from Philly, football player. I forget the name, but when I remember one scene very specifically because it deals exactly with what you're saying. His roommate, once he kind of started getting some credibility of being not a gimmick but a real player, one of the offensive linemen went to him and kind of threw him on the ground and said, look, when I put my hand down, if I'm pressing hard and you see the whites in my fingers, that means I'm going to do this. If you don't, that means I'm going to do that. It's these little things, like then you start really getting to the, okay, now I'm getting it.
Yeah. When you're on stage, it's learning how to keep your face to the audience, and finding your light and learning your cues when you come in and come out. And you have to do the same thing on camera, and they're totally different. It's a totally different kind of set. And once you get to where you got all of that, then you can start working on more. When I worked oddly enough, after doing background work on the TV series Walker, Texas Ranger, my first speaking role in a TV show was a Walker, Texas Ranger reunion movie. In a scene, in my first time ever actually sitting on camera in set talking to another person on camera was with Chuck Norris. And there were times, we had the camera where, you'd be the frame would be like this, and you'd be talking, you'd be doing your scene, and he would just reach over off camera and just kind of like shove you over a little bit. Because like the camera was behind my head looking at him, and he would just kind of, while you're doing your dialogue, he would just kind of just push you over, and you'd know, and he'd be like, ugh. And so finally, like he'd do that. He would like just kind of pull me a little bit over as he's talking to me, and they're like, what's going on? It's like Chuck Norris can not find the camera. Like he knows, he can feel the lens on him at this point. He knows what is being seen, and he can, like, he'll fix it if he has to while he's shooting, because he knows. And I'm like, wow, I want to get to that. And that's like, I've seen other actors, like learning from actors, like asking, what size lens are we using? And they'll say, oh yeah, we're using a 25. They're like, oh, so I need to change my eye line to here instead of here, right? And they're like, yeah, you do. And it's like, because there's a difference in the distance now because of the wide angle lens. And it's like, wow, I never thought that would be my problem to think of. I never thought that I would be at the point where I'm actually going, oh, you're on a 75. Well, then I need to sit up straighter, right? And they're like, yeah, you do. How did you know? Because I've had experience. I watched this guy do it and learned from him. And so, everything you can get from other actors and from other professionals. I feel like we've been going on this one for a long time.
That's great. That's what we need to do, right? People
right.
watching, this is what it's about. Learn, read, watch, get on set and just be a sponge. All right, a few more questions, and then we can let your kids be loud. I think mine are definitely done with classes, so I hear them outside. So, putting aside Breaking Bad, what's another project of yours that you found to be just really, really interesting and you've learned a lot from?
Everyone. I've tried to learn something from all of them. The first time I played a lead in a feature film, played the lead in a feature film, was probably one of the most profound kind of learning experiences for me. And it's a movie. It's called 1111. It's on Amazon Prime, I think, right now. Also some other streaming services. And it was meant to be kind of a Galaxy Quest-esque kind of sci-fi comedy. And it is a sci-fi comedy. It was a really big learning experience for me, learning, I learned a quote, and I don't remember who the quote is, but someone saying a director's worst nightmare is an actor with a plan. And I kind of learned why, it's because not always does your plan mesh with what the director wants. And then one of you has to capitulate. And typically it should be the actor that gives, and learning, but, oh man, I wanted to do it this way. And okay. Yeah. Realizing that they were, don't, so I stopped wanting to have so much control over my character's arc, and over the control over the journey, or how I get through that journey, and trust the director to guide that. And if and you're going to have a lot better experience because for instance, I had a scene with another actor who like we kept doing the scene, but there was like we'd finish the scene, it was like that doesn't feel right at all. That just like felt like it was bad. What was going on? It was because she had her plan and I had my plan. We both had our own plan going on, and then finally I went, what if we both go with your plan? I'm gonna just go along with your plan and play it like that and see how it works. Let's just try it. And so we did that, and suddenly it was like, oh, there it is. That's the problem. And it was the director kind of without. He was very green. This is his first feature. He'd done shorts, but it was his first feature, so it was kind of new to him to have these like two actors, each with their own agenda, and he was trying to like rein us in, but without really knowing, this is the beginning of the process for shooting this. Like, who do I tell? I like their plan better, or it was kind of a, hey, okay, you need to come in and step in and show us which direction. And he helped us, guide us into the right direction, I think. Because our plans were not quite in sync. But yeah, it was a really big learning experience for me in lots of ways. And I had fun making the movie. I think it's a fun movie. A lot of people do. It's not. Yeah, it's a family kind of fun film, and so it's not for everybody, but it is for everybody. That's specifically because it's for everybody is why it's not for everybody.
The fact that you said it's like Galaxy Quest, I'm gonna go watch it. So
it's fun.
Love Galaxy.
Well, it was supposed to be, yeah, in that vein, I guess. Not everything works the way planned, but it's a fun film, and it's on, like I say, it's on Amazon, so it's out there, and I hope people enjoy it. I think it's on iTunes too. It might be on iTunes.
I'll find it. And then
I can't keep track
because of all the CGI. You got to use your money, so that's good.
Yes, yeah, that was I was really excited about that. And so it was the first time actually having to be in that situation. So yeah, it was fun. Any other projects that I like that were that kind of wild?
Yeah, I guess what's the
Reese Witherspoon?
Oh, on Wild, that's right.
Yeah, that was a good learning experience too. Of just trusting your director. When you have a director that you can trust, man, it's an amazing experience. Just let him guide you, and if they do, that's fun. So anyway, go on.
I was just gonna say Reese is great. I really like her work, and I love her approach. I don't know what she's like as a person, but every time I kind of see her talking, she seems very lovely and genuine. So hopefully,
yeah, she really is. Okay. For the very short time, I mean, like, we didn't become like best buds or anything. We don't like text each other, but she was very, very kind and gracious to me for the few minutes that I had to be really, really horrible and gross to her in the scene. So, I mean, it was nice. The contrast was interesting.
By the way, how is the contrast? Again, I kind of, doing my research on you, I should stop saying that. But I don't know how else to approach it because I don't know you really. It just,
right.
My research. So in doing that, Anya, you seem like a different guy from a lot of the characters that you get to play. So do you find playing those characters free, or do you find that limiting? How do you find that?
Really depends on the character. I mean, and the role. I like characters that are interesting, and I definitely don't want them to be me all the time. I love trying to convince people I'm other people, and but I don't like just being bad guys for the sake of bad and playing characters who are bad just because they're bad. I like to have something that I can relate to without necessarily like having it to be part of me, like being able to do what I can. And a lot of the characters I play because they go, well, you played this thug on Breaking Bad, so we're going to offer you this thug on this show. And like, it would be stupid for me not to take some of these roles, because they are, they're not necessarily step up, but they are at least not a step backwards. And so I tend to play a few thugs because that's where some people expect me to be. And it's like, play this or don't work. And so I try and limit those to the ones that, like, technically, like from a business sense, that I feel like I should play this role because this will be good for my career. This will keep my career going at least until something bigger comes along. And then some roles are just like, hey, I'm going to jump off this cliff and try and see if this thing will work. And those are the ones that are fun for me. Where it's just like, I've never played a role like this. Let's go. But you have to balance that because, again, it's a business, and I have agents that I work with. I have a manager that I work with. I have a publicist that I work with, and they all, part of their income that depends on my income. And I don't want them to be like, hey, man, you keep turning everything down because it's not good enough. And so it's like, you have to balance that. What you want to do and what you can do. But I try not to be myself in anything I play.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I like that. I'm not sure if I looked at it like that, because there's a part of me that wanted to be more of myself in the roles that I play. But
well, that's strategy, or like, I love the chameleon aspect of it.
Yeah.
I like. Now, there's a double-sided kind of sword there. Not being recognized personally because, like, people don't see me as Skinny Pete isn't necessarily a great thing when you're looking for people to hire you. And they're like, oh, that guy's not that guy. We want the guy from Breaking Bad. My phone's about to die, so I'm sorry for blacking out.
We're almost done.
So the I forgot where I was going once that happened.
You were saying that, being the chameleon and not being recognized as Skinny Pete is detrimental. It's also a compliment to what
the compliment is, like, I was so convincing that people have no idea that I was that guy. And that's what I loved when I did theater. I would walk off stage after doing a performance of Cabaret, playing the MC, and then come out of the dressing room dressed as myself, and people looking around me going, hey, where's the guy who played the MC? And different roles like that. That's a compliment, because I did what I was trying to do. They believed that guy was, they believed Skinny Pete is really Skinny Pete. Like, but I'm not. That's the compliment. But the harsh side of that is a lot of this business isn't very imaginative. A lot of times the accountants, the ones who really like make some of the big decisions, aren't necessarily the most creative and imaginative people. And so they see me and go like, oh, you were the druggie, so we need you to be the druggie. You're a thug, so we need to be a thug. Like, it always baffled me when people talk about Skinny Pete being like hiring me because I was a thug. It's like, but Skinny Pete he just looked like a thug.
Right.
Everything else was like, he was loyal, he was stability, he was like
he played
a friend.
They can hire you as the piano playing guy, right?
Yeah. It's like people miss what like actually made that character popular, and they were like, they hired me because of the look, but it wasn't his look that made him popular. It was his character. That was not the character, but his character. His loving nature, his kindness, his open friendship, his ability to, his willingness to be there for his friends when they need him them too, and his loyalty. That's what the audience liked about Skinny Pete. Not that he was a drug addict thug, but I get hired to be the drug addict thug because I was a drug addict thug. Skinny Pete, like, you're missing the point.
I would be a terrible interview host if I didn't ask you to whether you want to show your dog, because I'm sure people hear your dog and they may want to see it.
I can try. She's 4 months old right now. Delilah.
Well, then there's the potential for being on your shirt.
Almost 4 months old, and she's a little bit excited right now. Her mom, my wife, is trying to keep her settled down because it is playtime. Delilah, come here. She might let me. Come here. Oh, she's a big girl. Oh, she's a big girl.
Oh,
this is our little one, the young one. She's a sweet pup.
That's wonderful. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, that's Delilah. She's we got her just 3 months ago, when she was just a little tiny thing. She was actually introduced on another interview. 5 minutes after I got her home, I was scheduled to do an interview with another guy, and here she is. She's already used to doing interviews now, apparently.
Yeah, she's a show dog.
Yeah.
Well, listen, I have a ton more questions for you. I wish that we can do another of these shows. You're very welcome to come back so we can continue. But the last question I want to ask you before your phone dies is, if you had a chance to to go and talk to yourself when you were just starting out as an actor, what would be one piece of advice that you would give yourself?
Ooh, when I first started, I'd tell me, this is not your last job. That's the second I finished that Walker, Texas Ranger movie of the week, I was like, what if that's the last thing I ever get? And it was a few months before I even got another audition. And I became kind of distraught. Like, that was my one thing. That was my one and done. And if I would have let that continue, it would have been. But somebody told me, this is not your last job. And so now when I go into a trailer for my next job, I put that little Post-it note in my dressing room mirror. This is not your last job. And remember that. Because sometimes it'll seem like it is, because you finish it and you don't know what's coming next. And when you're a guest star kind of actor like me, you're auditioning and hopefully getting a job once or twice a month. And if not, you hope you save some money. Because it's feast and famine in this business. But yeah, this is not your last job.
I wrote
Remember
that. That's great advice.
Right on.
That's great advice. I wrote that down. Now I'm going to have that as one of my Post-it notes. Thank you for that.
Hey, no problem. No problem. Keep it going.
Yeah. And again, thank you so much for jumping on. I really appreciate it. It's a pleasure.
Yeah.
And
Me too.
I'm going to go watch 11/11 now.
I hope you enjoy it. Let me know. Thank you very much.
I'm sure I will. And thanks to everybody for tuning in. I know it's long. I know that you stuck with us, and I appreciate it. By the way, if you have stuck with us, please subscribe and share and comment, because we want to hear from you. And we know you love acting as much as we do, and that's why we do this for you. Thank you.